Welcome to KetoMealsAndRecipes.com. Today I'm making my version of a Harry Potter inspired, sugar-free Butterbeer Fudge recipe. If you're wondering, this fudge is sold at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studio Resorts and at their stores. My Butterbeer Fudge is my interpretation, or as some call it, copycat recipe, which I also made sure was keto. The reason I wanted to make this really tasty keto fudge, I wanted to have some enjoyable treats on hand as we watch the third movie of the Harry Potter prequels, which is entitled Fantastic Beasts: The Secret of Dumbledore, which is going to be released on April 14th, 2022, and April 14th is my daughter's birthday. So happy birthday, dear. I want to share a little background story. I came across the first two Harry Potter books even before the movies came out. At the time, my children were quite young and still in primary school. And we had a family tradition of getting together at bedtime and reading a story together. Right from the beginning, my children loved Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and eventually, as we read through the series, all of the books. Then, when we took our children to see the first movie, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which is called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the United States, after leaving the theater, the first thing my children said is that they wish they could go to Hogwarts too. This was such a fun movie. We all enjoyed it, and my very young children were enchanted with this magical world. And of course, being children, they wanted the candies and treats that Harry Potter and his friends loved. Because of all of these really good memories, I wanted to make and share this tasty fudge recipe with all of you. But I have a request. If you also liked Harry Potter and the Wizarding World or the prequels, please share any fun memories. Tell me about your favorite book, your favorite character, which movie you preferred, or anything else you'd like to share. Also share your thoughts on the prequels of the Fantastic Beasts series. And leave it in the comments section. Here's my Butterbeer Fudge version. It has 2 layers. Each of these 2 layers have a distinctly delicious, creamy flavor, but when they're put together, this Butterbeer Fudge is absolutely amazing. You just have to try it. And I hope you'll watch the entire video for all of the how-to tips and information on which sweeteners are best to use for this recipe. The details about the sweeteners is somewhere near the end of the video. You'll be pleased to know that the macronutrient ratio for my sugar-free Butterbeer Fudge recipe is 5.7 to 1, with 5.2 grams of total carbs, 3.5 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in 1.7 grams of net carbs per square of fudge. To make this fudge, I will begin by first making my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk. Or if you prefer and want a dairy-free version, I also have a dairy-free sweetened condensed milk. If you've never seen or made my sweetened condensed milk before, I assure you it's very easy to make and it only takes about 20 minutes. And as a result, I usually make the condensed milk on the same day as I intend to make my fudge. Before I forget, the link for all mentioned video recipes and the formatted and translatable written recipe for this keto butterbeer fudge will be posted in the description box below. So please go down there to get all of the details you'll need to make this fudge. The reason that I make my sweetened condensed milk on the same day is because I want the condensed milk to be warm when I'm ready to use it. So I followed the directions as per my recipe, and then when it's done I remove it from the stove top and just let it cool a bit. I always begin by first making the bottom layer of the butterbeer fudge. After my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk has cooled slightly, it's time to add the caramel extract, which by the way enhances that butterbeer taste, which will enhance the butterbeer taste of this bottom darker layer. And after adding the extract, make sure you stir really well to combine everything together. In my opinion, at this stage, I think the butterbeer layer looks a little bit too pale. I want to darken the fudge and also enhance the taste just a little bit. So here's my little secret way to boost the flavor and at the same time darken the fudge, and all without using any artificial color or flavorant. First, get a small bowl, add your cocoa powder and the heavy cream. Stir until you have a very smooth paste. Add this chocolate mixture to darken the beer layer and stir to integrate. The next thing you do is add the melted white chocolate and again stir very well to combine. You want a homogeneous mixture at this point. Your fudge may still be a bit too warm, so let it cool to room temperature. And as it's cooling, I recommend that you stir every once in a while so that the sweetened condensed milk and the other ingredients don't crystallize as they're cooling. And this is the beer layers. It's now time to pour the Butterbeer Fudge mixture into the parchment lined rectangular container. I think my container was 4 inches by 7 inches, but I'm not quite sure. At this point, you can run a toothpick through the fudge and drop the container on the counter a couple times. This will help to break up any large air bubbles. Take your container and put it in the refrigerator and let it set for about 1 hour or until the fudge is firmly set, which will give you enough time to do the next step, which is to make the creamy fluff, which is basically a slightly modified version of my stabilized whipped cream frosting recipe. To make the fluff, all you have to do is get a large mixing bowl, pour in your cream, measure out your gelatin powder, and add the gelatin powder to your pre-ground sweetener and combine the two before adding them to the bowl with the cream. Then also add your vanilla and finely ground salt. Then either with a hand mixer or stand mixer, whip at high speed until your cream is at a medium stiff peak stage. Now to complete the creamy topping layer for our butterbeer with this white fudge layer. I made a second batch of my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, or here again you could opt and use the dairy-free sweetened condensed coconut milk. Pour this condensed milk into a bowl, then give it a light stir, and to the same bowl also add the melted room temperature white chocolate, and then whisk to combine into a homogeneous mixture. Lastly, pour this white creamy fudge topping over the buttercream layer. What you will notice is this white fudge layer is extremely fluffy and creamy and much lighter than the darker fudge layer. So after pouring it into the container, use a spatula or the back of a spoon to even out and smooth the surface. Cover the container with cling wrap or a lid. Put the container in the refrigerator, or if you're in a hurry, into your freezer, and leave it there until it's firmly set. Regardless if you're using your fridge or freezer, let the fudge rest overnight. This will really help to develop the texture and the flavor. The very last thing you do, when the fudge has set firmly, lift the fudge out of the container using the parchment flaps, peel off the parchment from the fudge, and if you notice that the surface of your fudge is irregular and you want to smooth it out, here's a nifty little trick. Get a metal knife, heat it up, and then just glide it gently over the surface. The heat will melt the surface and help you to make a really nice smooth finish. And when you're making your cuts, after each cut, wipe the blade so it's nice and clean. Wiping your blade after each cut will prevent the smudging between the layers. I want to mention that you should also heat up your knife just before you're going to make each of the cuts. That will allow the knife to just very easily go through the fudge, just as if you were cutting butter. You don't have to heat your knife, but I just thought I'd share this trick with you. I cut 4 even rows lengthwise. It's easiest if you cut it in half first and then cut each half in half. And then rotate your fudge and cut 7 rows along the width. Try to make the squares as even as possible. Mine were approximately 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter squares when you're looking from the top. This fudge is really creamy. And to keep it at its best consistency and flavor, always store the remaining fudge in an airtight container and keep it in your refrigerator. Alternatively, you could freeze this fudge, and in the freezer it will last for several months, or until it's eaten. Here are my thoughts on the best sweeteners to use to get the best texture for your fudge. And this conclusion is as the result of making several previous versions of Keto Fudge. I have experimented with a few sweeteners, and I have found that the unique properties of both the birch xylitol or allulose don't work for fudge. That's because I have found that these two sweeteners prevent the fudge from fully solidifying and staying solid at room temperature. The fudge is very soft and melts easily when held in your fingers. However, I have found an erythritol monk fruit blend, or a swerve, which is an erythritol stevia blend, or just plain erythritol, ground to a very fine confectioner powder. These sweeteners give you the right texture for the fudge. So I would recommend For this recipe, you use one of these sweeteners. I hope that this video and my tips have been useful to you. I always love hearing and corresponding with you, so please do let me know what you think of this recipe. And as a thank you for watching this video right to the end, here's a little sneak preview. I'm going to be making 3 more Harry Potter inspired recipes. Until next time, I hope you have a very happy and healthy day. Cheers!